Welcome back, wild souls, to Sacred Grit, where ancient paths and modern strength walk side by side. I'm Freya.
Uh, and I'm Ash, resident overthinker, part-time stick collector, and full-time question asker.
Which is perfect, because today we're doing something a little different and a whole lot of fun. We're answering your questions. This episode is all about diving into the most common, and sometimes the most misunderstood, questions about modern paganism.
Yeah, we've been getting messages, comments, side glances from our neighbors, and even a few awkward questions at family gatherings. So we figured, why not tackle the top 10 questions head on?
Exactly. Whether you're curious about starting a pagan practice, wondering what we really think about the number 666, or just trying to figure out if you can still celebrate Thanksgiving, we've got you.
And we promise, no judgment, no gatekeeping, and definitely no pop quizzes. Unless it involves identifying herbs by smell, in which case Freya is already 10 steps ahead.
Guilty. But really, this episode is for anyone exploring the path, whether you're brand new to the idea of paganism or just pagan-curious. We'll bring the facts, a little folklore, and of course, some grit.
And maybe one or two bad jokes. I'm just saying. It's tradition at this point.
Let's get into it. 10 real questions, real answers, and just maybe a few things you didn't know you wanted to know. Question 1. I want to start practicing paganism. Where do I start? This is hands down the most common and one of the most important questions we get. And honestly, it's a beautiful place to begin. Because paganism isn't about a single book or rigid doctrine. It's a living path, one that grows with you. So where do you start? Start with observation. Begin paying attention to the world around you, the moon cycles, the seasons shifting, the sunrise and sunset. Just noticing those rhythms is a huge step towards syncing with nature, which is central to nearly every pagan path.
Yep. I always say step one is look up. Look at the moon, the stars, the trees. If they're bare, blooming, or somewhere in between. Step two is breathe. Not because it's magical, but because it reminds you that you're in the world, not separate from it.
Exactly. After that, start learning, read books, listen to podcasts, follow creators or writers who explore the kind of paganism that resonates with you. Don't feel like you need to commit to a label right away. Wicca, Norse paganism, Celtic Reconstructionism, animism. It's okay to explore.
Think of it like dating. Don't marry the first deity you meet.
That's weirdly sound advice. Also, begin a small daily ritual. It could be lighting a candle with intention, saying a few words of gratitude to the earth, or just taking 5 minutes a day to sit in silence outside. Paganism is about relationship, to the land, to spirit, to yourself.
And journal, even if it's messy or irregular. Writing down what you notice, feel, or wonder is a powerful way to track your growth and deepen your intuition.
To sum it up, start with nature. Stay curious, keep it simple, and let your path unfold. Because paganism isn't about arriving at a destination, it's about walking the path with intention. Question 2. Is Friday the 13th a pagan thing?
Ah, yes. The infamous Friday the 13th. Cue the spooky music, black cats, and your aunt telling you not to travel that day.
Ha! It's one of those superstitions that everyone knows about, but few people understand the origins of. So, is it pagan? The short answer? Sort of. The longer answer? It's complicated.
Which is honestly the subtitle of most pagan topics.
Okay, so let's break it down. In ancient times, particularly in pre-Christian Europe, the number 13 was actually considered sacred. There are 13 lunar cycles in a year, and many pagan calendars and traditions, especially those connected to goddess worship or lunar cycles, viewed 13 as a number of wholeness and mystery, not bad luck.
And Friday? It was associated with Frigg, the Norse goddess of love, marriage, and feminine power, which later got mixed up with Freya, another powerful Norse goddess. So Friday was actually sacred to the divine feminine in a lot of ancient traditions.
Exactly. But as patriarchal systems grew, particularly with the rise of organized religion in Europe, anything linked to feminine power, lunar cycles, or goddess traditions began to get painted in a suspicious light. So suddenly, Friday the 13th wasn't a celebration of the goddess and the moon anymore. It became a symbol of bad luck.
So yeah, technically Friday the 13th does have pagan roots. But the bad luck part came later as part of demonizing old ways, which, honestly, just makes me want to celebrate it even more.
Same. In fact, many modern pagans use Friday the 13th as a day to honor the divine feminine, work lunar magic, or simply reclaim what was once sacred. Now hold on, we might start a fight with this next one. Question number 3 is, was Christmas a pagan holiday?
Oh, yeah, we're going there. Grab your eggnog and brace yourself, and this one's always fun at family dinner.
The short answer? Yes, sort of. Again, we need to make a t-shirt that says, it's complicated pagan edition. So many of the traditions associated with modern Christmas have deep pagan roots, especially from Northern and Western Europe. Let's start with Yule, which is the pagan winter solstice festival. It celebrates the longest night of the year and the return of the sun, the rebirth of light in the darkest time.
Yule logs, totally pagan. Decorating trees, pagan. Hanging mistletoe, super pagan. Singing songs around a fire and feasting all night while wearing questionable sweaters? Okay, maybe not the sweaters, but the vibe? Definitely pagan.
Yeah, the early Christian church adopted, and sometimes rebranded, a lot of these local seasonal festivals as a way to help convert communities. December 25th was chosen as Jesus' birthday because it aligned closely with several sun deity celebrations and Yule festivities.
So if you're pagan and you love Christmas, no worries. You're probably already doing a pagan thing without even realizing it.
Exactly. You can celebrate Yule in its traditional sense by honoring the return of the light, burning a Yule log, decorating with evergreen and natural elements, giving heartfelt gifts, and spending time in reflection and connection.
And if you still want to put out cookies for Santa, totally cool. He's basically a rebranded Odin flying through the sky anyway.
So yes, Christmas as we know it today is a blend of Christian and pagan customs, and many modern pagans joyfully celebrate Yule, either instead of or alongside Christmas. Okay, so coming out of that last question about Christmas and its blend of traditions, we've got to address one of the biggest misconceptions out there.
Yep. This is the one where people lower their voice and lean in like it's a dark family secret. Wait, do pagans worship the devil?
No, absolutely not. Pagans do not worship the devil, because the devil, as understood in Christianity, doesn't even exist in pagan cosmology.
Right. The horned figure that people associate with evil is a Christian creation, often used to demonize older gods and nature spirits. A lot of ancient pagan deities like Pan, Cernunnos, or even wild forest spirits were depicted with horns, hooves, and a wild look. That imagery got twisted over time into something sinister.
And here's the thing. In paganism, there's no central concept of ultimate evil or a singular being that tempts humanity. It's a very different worldview. Paganism is rooted in balance, not moral dualism. Light and dark, growth and decay, chaos and order, all are natural and necessary.
It's not good versus evil. It's more like seasons and cycles. There's challenge, yes, but not this idea of a cosmic villain lurking behind every bush.
Also, pagan paths tend to be earth-based. We worship the divine in the land, in the sky, in ourselves, not in opposition to something. We revere nature, ancestors, and archetypal deities that represent forces of life, not supernatural evil.
So if someone says pagans worship the devil, what they really mean is, I saw a horned god statue and didn't Google it.
Pretty much, so no. Pagans don't worship the devil. That's a misunderstanding rooted in fear, not fact.
All right, since we're on the topic of spooky symbols and misunderstood numbers, let's talk about 666.
Yes, the so-called number of the beast. Spoiler alert, it's not pagan either. This one actually comes from the Book of Revelation in the Christian Bible, where it's used symbolically to reference a corrupt ruler, likely Emperor Nero, according to many historians and scholars.
So to be clear, 666 is strictly a Christian reference and has nothing to do with ancient pagan practices, traditions, or deities. We're over here working with 3s, 4s, 8s, lunar cycles, solar wheels, and harvest festivals, not beast codes.
Exactly. In fact, many pagan and occult traditions use numerology, but not in a this number is evil kind of way. Numbers are often viewed as symbolic or energetic. 3 might represent balance and unity, 4 for the elements, 8 for the wheel of the year, and so on.
Now, if you do see a pagan with a number tattooed on them, it's probably more like 333, or the number of moon phases in a cycle, not a hidden hex.
So if you're new to the path and worried about seeing a number like 666 associated with paganism, don't be. That's a Christian construct with no roots in pagan belief systems.
And if you see it spray painted on a wall with a pentagram next to it, it's more hot topic energy than actual pagan practice. All right, now it is time to get a little personal. Why did we choose paganism?
We love this question because it reminds people that paganism isn't just a belief system, it's a path, a personal one. For me, I came to paganism slowly. It wasn't like flipping a switch. It was like waking up little by little. I started noticing that I felt most whole when I was in nature, that I felt drawn to the moon, to the wind in the trees, to the cycles of the seasons. I had tried other paths, but they always felt like someone else's story. Paganism felt like mine, not because someone told me it was sacred, but because I felt it was sacred. It's a path that lets me honor the divine without needing permission and root into ancient traditions while still creating my own.
My story's less poetic, more chaotic. I kind of stumbled into paganism like someone who wandered into the wrong book section and realized, wait, I live here. I was raised with a more traditional religious background, and it just never quite fit. I always asked too many questions, with the kind that didn't get satisfying answers. But I also didn't want to throw out the idea of the sacred entirely. Then one day I'm on a hike, standing under this massive old pine tree, and it just clicked. The wind, the smell of the earth, the silence, that was my church. I didn't need stained glass, I needed sky.
That's beautifully said, chaotic or not.
Thanks. Paganism for me is freedom with responsibility. It asks me to show up, to notice, to honor, to act with intention. And honestly, I need that. I crave it. Especially in a world that moves too fast and numbs too easily.
So to sum it up, we both chose paganism because it felt like home. Not because it was easy or trendy or handed to us, but because it resonated.
Okay, so after all that, you might be wondering, what is the core of it all? If there's no central book, no commandments carved into stone, what's the big idea behind paganism?
That's such a great follow-up. And the beauty of paganism is that while it can look different from person to person, there are some consistent themes. And in my view, the most important one is connection. Connection to nature, connection to the self, connection to cycles, ancestors, the land you stand on, the breath you take, the fire you light. Everything is alive. Everything has spirit. And when you recognize that, when you treat the world as sacred, your entire relationship to life changes.
Yeah, I'd add responsibility too. Not the heavy, guilt-laden kind. I mean the kind that says, you're a part of this web, and what you do matters. Paganism asks you to pay attention, to live intentionally. It doesn't give you a checklist of rules. It hands you the seasons and says, learn from this.
There's also a huge emphasis on personal sovereignty, the idea that you are your own spiritual authority. That doesn't mean you never seek guidance, but it does mean you don't give your power away lightly.
So if we had to tattoo the central concept on a rock somewhere, it would probably read, live in rhythm, live with reverence, and don't be a jerk. Okay, maybe something more poetic, but you get the idea.
Honestly, that works. So yes, the heart of paganism is connection. And through that connection, we find meaning, healing, and purpose. So now that we've talked about connection and honoring cycles, we get this next question a lot, especially from folks who are just starting to walk a pagan path.
Yep. Usually it comes with a slightly nervous tone and goes something like, okay, but does this mean I have to give up Christmas? Or Easter? Or family barbecues on the 4th of July?
Short answer, nope. You don't have to give up anything. Paganism isn't about exclusion. It's about intention. You get to decide which holidays hold meaning for you and how you celebrate them. If you grew up with Christmas and it brings you joy, you can absolutely still celebrate it. Many pagans celebrate both Yule and Christmas, for example, sometimes blending them, sometimes separating them.
Yeah, I light a Yule log, honor the solstice, and then still show up at my mom's on the 25th to eat cookies and get socks I didn't ask for. It's about balance.
Exactly. Paganism is not a jealous path. It doesn't demand exclusivity. What it does ask is that you bring awareness to your celebrations. Why are you doing it? What are you honoring? Who are you connecting with?
Think of it like this. You're not switching from one box of holidays to another. You're rerouting your calendar and meaning. Maybe you start celebrating the solstices and equinoxes. Maybe you keep Thanksgiving, but add in gratitude rituals from a pagan lens.
And honoring your ancestors, even if they celebrated different holidays, can be part of your practice too. There's no one right calendar in paganism. There's just the one that feels true to you.
So light the menorah, eat the turkey, dance around the maypole, but just make sure you know why you're doing it. So if you're blending traditions or coming from a Christian background, this next question often comes up. And it's a really important one to explore with nuance.
Right. People often ask, okay, but what do pagans actually think about the Bible? And the honest answer is, it depends. There's no single pagan perspective. But broadly speaking, most pagans don't view the Bible as part of their own sacred framework. It's not a text that's central to pagan belief or practice.
But that doesn't mean we automatically reject it either. Many of us were raised with it. Some still find poetic or symbolic value in parts of it. And we definitely respect that it's sacred to millions of people. It's just not sacred in the same way to us.
Exactly. Paganism encourages discernment. And for some, the Bible may represent a tradition they've chosen to move away from, especially if that tradition was used to shame or silence them. For others, there may be curiosity or even a respectful coexistence.
Some people leave the church and never look back. Others keep a candle lit for the parts that still resonate, like the wisdom teachings, the love your neighbor stuff, or the poetic psalms, while building a pagan practice rooted in the earth, the stars, and personal sovereignty.
And we can acknowledge that the Bible has cultural and literary significance, even if it's not part of our current path. Paganism doesn't ask you to be hostile toward other traditions, just honest with yourself about what feels aligned.
So in short, pagans don't need the Bible to build a sacred life. But we also don't need to pick a fight with it either.
Unless it starts telling us we can't talk to trees, in which case, too late.
Way too late. So yeah, when it comes to the Bible, most pagans just walk a different path. Not out of hostility, but out of a deep sense of connection to other ways of seeing the world.
Which brings us right to our final question, one that often comes from folks used to more traditional religious structures.
You know, the Sunday morning building with donuts in the foyer kind of vibe.
Exactly. So let's talk about it. Are there any pagan churches? Great final question, and one that really speaks to how paganism looks so different from mainstream religion.
Right, we don't exactly have big buildings with stained glass and pews every few blocks, unless moss-covered boulders count, which actually they kind of do.
They do. So here's the deal. Paganism is mostly decentralized. There's no pope of paganism, no global headquarters. But that doesn't mean we're all solo practitioners either. There are pagan churches, temples, covens, groves, circles, and even entire outdoor festival communities. You'll find them both online and in person, depending on where you live.
I've seen pagan meetups in city parks, full moon gatherings in forests, Zoom rituals, and even full-on pagan temples with altars and incense and everything. Just without the guilt trip.
Some groups are formal and structured, with clergy and study programs. Others are super casual, more like spiritual potlucks. You bring the candles, I'll bring the mead.
And if there's nothing near you, that's okay. One of the beautiful things about paganism is that you can practice alone and still be valid. Solitary practitioners are incredibly common, and many people build rich, deeply personal practices right from their own homes or backyards.
And online communities are growing fast. There are podcasts like this one, forums, Discord groups, and even live-streamed rituals. It's not about the building. It's about the intention and the connection.
So, are there pagan churches? Yes, but they don't all look the same. And sometimes the best sanctuary is under an open sky.
Amen to that. That wraps up our Q&A. We hope this answered some of your questions, or maybe sparked some new ones.
And hey, if your question didn't make the cut this time, send it our way. We'll definitely be doing another episode like this soon.
If you found this episode helpful, please consider leaving a comment, sharing it with a friend, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell on YouTube. Your support helps us keep the fire burning and the stories flowing.
We're not a mega church. We're more like a cozy campfire. Yeah, and there's always room for one more.
Thanks for walking the path with us. Until next time, stay wild, stay grounded. And remember, grow
Grow
deep,
deep,
stand
stand
strong,
strong,
stay
stay sacred.
sacred.